welcome. If you are a fan or a follower of TMI Project, we welcome you. And if you are a friend or a supporter of the Maya Gold Foundation, we welcome you. And if you're not connected to either, we really welcome you. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm here to share. My name is Elise Gold. Along with my husband, Matthew Swerdloff, we co-founded the Maya Gold Foundation in November of 2015, and that was 1 month after our daughter, Maya, tragically took her life. The mission of the Maya Gold Foundation is to empower youth to access their inner wisdom and realize their dreams. And we have a couple of goals to attain the mission, and they each have to do with working with youth here in the Hudson Valley region and also in Nepal. And why Nepal? Well, that was part of Maya's dream. So I'm going to allow invite Hannah Goichman and Amelia Verderosa to share a little bit about different ways in which we attain our goals, and then I'm going to step in and finish with some announcements and introductions.
Hi everybody. So I'm a member of the Youth Action Team, and basically what our mission is to give youth a voice, and I felt that I've really grown and learned how to use my voice through this. We also do a lot of community service work, so if you know anyone or you are someone who really loves just doing a lot of good work and giving back to the community, you should apply online. Also, I'm a member of the Thrive Grant Committee, which basically goes with any program that empowers youth. It goes along with our mission, just sort of because we can't really do it all, so we kind of want to support different types of programs that way. Also, if you have any questions about the foundation or you want to talk to any of us, you can find us in blue shirts. And there's a donation jar in the back, so if you feel inclined, that'd be really great. Thank you.
So from March 24th to April 7th, we're going to be traveling to Nepal to visit orphanages and try to bridge a connection with teens there. So if you want to go, there's an application online. Also on our website, as Hannah mentioned, for community service, there's a scholarship. So for New Paltz teens who are committed to community service, that would be something for you. And if you want to get occasional updates from us, there's an email list at our table out there, so feel free to put your name.
I'm going to first plant a seed, and that is to let you know that TMI Project and Maya Gold Foundation are going to be partnering in another way going forward. And perhaps during this performance, you could just have that seed there and let it perhaps germinate. Eva is going to share a little bit more during or at the end of the show, and it will be for 13 teens. So just setting that out there. Sometimes, this next little piece is about self-care. Sometimes when we are in environments like this, we might find ourselves charged or something stirred. So I invite you to, you keep your finger on your own pulse and take care of yourself the best you know how. And if it means taking a breather and stepping outside or in the lobby, know that that is not only accepted but encouraged. In any way you care to take care of yourself, please do. There will be somebody there to offer support if you feel like you need that. Okay, tonight, the heartbeats. Where did that come from? Among other things, to reach our mission, to attain our mission, we have something called community events series. And the intention behind that is to create dialogue among and between teens and adults. So we, the foundation, has offered a series of a lot of different performances and events and workshops that are stimulating in different ways. And rather than the ideas come from this committee of adults that meets every now and then doing the planning, we really reached out to the teens like Hannah and Amelia and others that serve on the youth action team and asked them, what do you want to hear about or learn about or explore? And they gave us a list that was pretty intense. There are a lot of issues that we don't dialogue about, and we're hoping to create safe places where that can happen. So issues of mental health and substance abuse and suicide prevention, and well, tonight's event has to do with relationships. Not just the romantic kind, but all kinds of relationships, and we all can benefit from learning about that. So what better way to explore relationships by bringing TMI Project in, and to that end, I welcome Eva Tinto to introduce the rest of the evening. So thank you all.
Thank you, Elise.
I just wanted to thank Elise and Matthew and everyone at the Maya Gold Foundation for having TMI Project here tonight. We actually just had the honor of honoring Elise with an Agent of Change Award this year. And we're so glad for this partnership and for being able to do this work together. So thank you for having us. So how many of you are at your first TMI Project show ever?
Oh, wow.
Oh, awesome. That's so cool. We wanted to tell you a little bit about it. This is a really special place for us to be doing this particular performance. It's not only the place where TMI Project started. We had our first show ever here on this stage almost 8 years ago. But right after that show, that night, Julie and I decided to be in a relationship.
We co-founded TMI Project as we co-founded our love for each other, I guess you could say. Yeah, and actually Ann Citron, who is the executive director of Rosendale Theater Collective, she introduced us.
It was before TMI Project, and this will give you a little history about how we got started, TMI, and how we got started.
And this story is actually kind of a TMI story.
This is a little bit of a TMI Project story,
Touch.
so bear with us.
A touch.
TMI Project started because in 2008, a women's organization, an arm of United Way called Hope's Fund, reached out to me to see if I would direct the vagina monologues for them for a fundraiser. And I was very excited to do so because I had been a director and doing women's theater in New York City for many years, and I was freshly back here and wasn't a part of a creative community yet. And so I said yes. And then I had to cast the show. So I reached out to Ann Citron and said, do you have anybody that I should reach out to audition for the vagina monologues? And she said, oh, you should have Julie Novak audition. What? Oh. You must know her, right? I said, no, I've never met her before. And so this one walks in the door.
Walked in the door, sat down at during the auditions, and Eva just randomly picked out things for each person to read, not really knowing any of us. So we just went in a circle, and my part to start reading happened to land on the character of, it's a story, a monologue called The Woman Who Loved to Make Vaginas Happy. This is the truth.
This is the TMI part.
I read for the part.
She was really good.
I got the part.
Excellent job.
Did such an excellent job that she married me! But years later, but it's funny though, and then, in coming full circle, it actually also was on this stage probably
Before
a year, maybe 6 months before we actually got together, that Eva actually did ask me, no joke, to marry her. We did another show together as actors in a show.
It was
And
before we were dating at
Yeah.
all.
And I had gotten done, I did a monologue, and I finished, and I took my bow, and I walked away, and she was sitting in the dark, the whole cast was on stage, and she looked at me and said, "Will you marry me?"
Because she was so good. She was so good that I asked her if she would marry me. But this is the last thing I want to say about the meeting story, is that last year when we did Voices in Action, we gave the award to Eve Ensler, who's the writer of the Vagina Monologues. And when we told her that story, she said, "Oh my God, you guys are the 4th actor-director couple I know who got married as a result of that monologue." So I'm kind of curious, like, how many others are out there?
That's good stuff. That's good stuff.
So, we're going to move on with the show. We just thought since the show is about relationships, we should start by telling you a little bit about ours.
Yeah, and for those who haven't been to a TMI show, I mean, do you want to just tell them really quickly, like, what our mission is and what we do?
Yes. So we get people to tell the too much information parts of their stories, and we identify that as the parts that they usually leave out because they're too ashamed or embarrassed to share them. And what we find is that when people are brave enough to share those stories, we work in small groups at first in our workshops, and then we help people craft their stories into monologues, and then they get up on stage and they share them with the world, sometimes with hundreds of people. The performer has a transformation. They go through feeling a sense of liberation from letting go of this thing that's been holding them back. They make a connection with the audience. They find out that they're not alone. People in the audience find out that they're not alone from listening. And a really deep connection can be made. So we're doing all sorts of work now, and I think I'll save some of the specifics of different programs we're working on when I introduce the different readers for you. We really wanted to take a look at relationships from a bunch of different perspectives. And so the first reader that we're going to have tonight is Haley. Haley first took our weekend workshop with the Omega Women's Leadership Center for the weekend, and that's where she wrote this piece. She later took a workshop with us at the Mental Health Institution in Ulster County, and she then trained with us to be a teacher and is now teaching the workshop at MHA. So we're really pleased to have her here and share a story from her childhood that has to do with her and the relationship with her mom. So please welcome Haley.
Hi. I have a cold, so bear with me. It's my 10th birthday. I am a gloomy nerd with a pot belly and an Ogilvy home perm and smudgy glasses. But today I am happy because I'm having a party. Ashley, Claudia, and Missy are coming for pizza, and we'll play games and goad each other into hysterics, high on Kool-Aid and buttercream frosting from my awesome Garfield birthday cake. Even Wanda Beavers, my torturer, my oppressor, is coming. A brief cease and desist to join the celebration. My mother is raging around the house for the vacuum, alternately weeping and shouting at me to get out of her way. Although our house is already obsessively clean, worked over, daily scrubbed like a murder scene, she is panicking. Why? Because it's filthy, she shrieks. 2 hours left to go and she's running out of time. She foams, wipes, mops and blows herself into a frenzy. Her misery, as always, is like a deep fog that rolls through the house, seeping into every little corner and crevice. I know this dance. Staying docile is the trick. Avoid eye contact. I just have to make it to party time and all will be well, because in the public eye, she is sweet and warm. 1 hour until they arrive. She is ironing napkins, emitting faint whimpers. Not enough time. Nobody ever helps me. I pretend clean around the house, keeping a paperback copy of Blubber by Judy Blume hidden in the waist of my shorts so I can sneak read when she's not looking. 45 minutes to go and she's hanging streamers. Take a bath, she barks,
and do something about your hair. When I returned to my room, chubby girl flesh wrapped in a towel, I closed the door and noticed my lunchbox, a lunch sack with a long strap, like a purse, hanging on the doorknob. I brought it home from school last week, and instead of dropping it in the kitchen, distracted, I hung it here. It must have been the bag's gentle bump against the closing door that is the tipping point. Inside, the slow boiling army of maggots that have been hatched on the carcass of the leftover fried chicken I declined to eat last week burst forth, spilling out of the bag onto the floor. A million tiny, writhing white bodies were squirming deep into the fibers of the brown shag carpet. Like zombies in a horror film, they keep coming. As if my lunch sack has a fake bottom. As if hell has been made manifest in my bedroom. That's when my mother walks in. Her screams ricochet around the room, swirling around my head like harpies, smashing my heart like plaster. I wonder if the neighbors will come, but they never do. Now I've really ruined everything. I'm literally the worst kid on earth. Those screams. My room is a prison cell, and I'm trapped. My mother and 5 million maggots are standing between me and sweet freedom. And then something amazing happens. I leave my body. My soul just departs, hovers over by the window, and I'm just watching myself from across the room. I'm watching myself from across the room, scooping maggots with one hand and clumsily clutching at my towel with the other. I'm no longer the perpetrator of this crime. I'm just an innocent observer. 2 cans of Raid, 3 rolls of paper towels, and a tripled up industrial garbage bag later, the doorbell rings. It's time. I return to my body in time to see my mother push her face into mine. Now you get up there, she growls like Joan Crawford, and you show your guests a good time. And I do. Obediently, I arrange my face to receive my guests. All carnage evacuated, we are a united front. We are happy. This is a special day. Later, we girls have congregated in my bedroom. We're standing over my desk, ogling a teen beat with Rob Lowe on the cover, when a single maggot, the lone survivor, begins inching its way across the vast expanse of my desk. Ew, a maggot, shrieks Wanda Beavers, that bitch. With the palm of my hand, I smash it into oblivion, look Wanda in the eye, and tell her she is mistaken. I am so fast, nobody else even sees. Thank you.
Thank you, Haley. Haley's story is such a good example of what can happen when we tell a story that's been haunting us. That experience of writing it, I remember so clearly. She went back to her room that evening and called her husband and read it to him and said, "Is it too dark to read in the workshop tomorrow?" And didn't even know that there was humor in it until she aired it out. And one of the things that you've said about that story is that it lost all of its charge for you. The maggots used to haunt her, and now they have no power anymore. And she'd like to TMI every experience she's been through to make that happen. We're working on it one story at a time. The next person that we're going to invite to the stage is Allie Quinn. Allie took our workshop through the Mental Health Association. We actually have quite a few readers from MHA with us tonight. And I'll share a little bit, I don't want to preface the story too much, but I'll share and have Allie share some of her experiences that happened after she told her story, which reminds me that I wanted to let you know that we will have a Q&A after. So as you're listening, if you think of questions that you'd like to know from the readers, just make a little mental note that you'll have the opportunity to do that. And then we will also have a little writing exercise so that you can experience a little mini workshop if you'd like to. So I just wanted to plant that seed as well. And with no further ado, we will welcome Allie.
One night at dinner, my sister asks everyone at the table, if you could, would you rather go back in time to visit the past or go forward to see what happens in the future? Everyone quickly answers the same way. The past, they say. They would like to relive the best days of their lives, and they're optimistic enough about the future that they would like it to be a surprise. I, on the other hand, don't respond right away. Of course I'd like to revisit amazing events from my life. Finding out I got the lead in the school play, receiving the cheerleading scholarship, getting accepted to SUNY New Paltz, my first kiss. I would love to recapture those moments. But before I blurt out that I'd choose to go to the past, I stop myself and think for another minute. Maybe just having those memories is enough. I realize, as someone who battles depression, that it might be more beneficial to see into the future. It could reassure me that things will be okay. Bad days will happen, but that doesn't mean life will be disappointing. I'd love to know for sure that I'll finish college, get a great job, get married, and have kids. People tell me all the time, things will get better, things will get better, things will get better. But I want to know this for myself. Maybe this would help me combat my feelings of hopelessness. Oh yeah. Growing up and into my early 20s, I'm always fairly confident about many aspects of my life. I'm great at making friends, I get good grades, and I see a bright future ahead of me as a high school social studies teacher. I have a long-term boyfriend who I assume I'll be with forever. Then, one night in 2013, everything changes. That night, my best friend and I meet at McDonald's for ice cream sundaes. At around 9:30 when we're done, I give her a hug, get into my Pathfinder, and drive around the restaurant to the exit. It's very dark. I have to make a right out of the parking lot to get home. I look at the red light and at the car in the distance coming in my direction. After thinking for a few seconds, I decide that I have time to make the turn ahead of the car. Apparently, the driver of the other car doesn't agree. I check my rearview mirror and notice the car pulling up right behind me. I begin to feel uneasy. Cautiously, I turn onto a road and the driver follows. I pick up speed, and so does the driver. I stay on this main road for a little over a mile, keeping watch behind me and feeling very anxious. I slow down as I approach the road where I live and debate whether I should turn down it or keep driving. Nervously, I signal and turn and swiftly enter my road. The car behind me signals too, waits a few seconds, then drives away. Holding back tears, I follow my long road home. I arrive home, and I feel as if I can't leave the car. I look around the car to make sure I'm really alone and run into the house. I search around, and there's no one downstairs. Slowly, I turn my head and look out a window, and I see a man's face. Terrified, I duck down and hear my mom come downstairs. She sees me crouching in the corner and is concerned. I try to explain about the car and the face, but I'm out of breath and not making sense. My hallucination of the car and the face are all I can think of, and I'm still convinced they're real. My mom assures me that everything is okay, but I can't comprehend. She leads me to the couch, but I look around to make me feel safer. By the time she comes back in, I'm paralyzed, staring intensely out a window. I can't find words. All that come out are whimpers and screeches. Mom has never seen me like this. She gives me medicine to help me relax and fall asleep. My mind is not clear, but I begin to feel tired. I fall asleep, knowing that this night will change my life. I don't know how mentally ill I am, or how much things have changed until a few days later, when I get home from Michael's craft store. I've always loved making things for people, so I decide to try making this kind of beaded bracelet from a kit. On the box, there's a picture of two young girls making the bracelets. I spend 2 hours trying to make one, but I can't do it. I become so discouraged that I spiral into days of depression and hopelessness. I've never felt this way before. It gets worse. The process of losing capabilities and skills progresses. Within a few weeks, I can barely read or write. That June, I'm hospitalized for the first time for 1 week at Four Winds in Saratoga. It's my first time doing something like this, away from my family and friends, and it's scary. There's a girl there around my age who concerns me. She lashes out often, which is a big trigger for me. When I meet with the therapist assigned to me, I tell him about my worries. Well, try not to think about it, he says, and then you'll be fine. Really? That's his answer? I leave there without any diagnosis of anxiety, but my fears are not simply things I can decide to not think about. If I could, why would I be in the hospital? A few weeks later, I begin an outpatient program at a different hospital. The first week is fine, but soon I begin to decline again. My antipsychotic medication has been switched 3 times in only a few weeks, and it's made me sicker. I begin to get worse than I had ever been, and the people running the program don't know what is wrong with me. When my mental health state reaches its worst, my mom and dad go with me to talk to the main doctor. He asks my parents to leave the room, then sits down. Is it boyfriend problems? He asks. I'm shocked and disgusted. That's the last day I attend the program. People who don't live with mental illness have a hard time understanding that it's not just an issue you can get over. It has so much to do with your brain. You can have treatments like medications and therapy, which can help, but someone minimizing your experience or essentially telling you to get over it is offensive and frustrating. There are a few more hospitalizations, 5 in total. During the last one, in addition to feeling lonely, depressed, and constantly anxious, I'm also worried that I'm not calling my boyfriend enough to keep him happy. I wish I didn't feel guilty for not being there enough for him. I go to bed each night in the hospital with thoughts racing through my head, never feeling happy with myself. I think about that line that friends, family, doctors all keep telling me, it gets better, it gets better, it gets better. That Thanksgiving, that mantra finally becomes a reality. That's when I get the call that ends my 3.5-year relationship. Instead of being sad about it, I feel a great sense of empowerment. In my heart, I know that it's time to focus on myself instead of going through my life people-pleasing. After doing well, I'm discharged from McLean Hospital with a newfound inspiration and confidence in myself. That's my last hospital stay. My experience inspires me to reevaluate my goals. Previously, I had been an education major, but after being hospitalized and seeing a broad cornucopia of mental health issues, I decided I am destined to help people with mental illness, either as a therapist, social worker, or even speaking to educate about mental illness in young adults and empower those who suffer from it. I know how difficult the low points can be, but I also know how it feels to emerge with strength. Having hope is a crucial part of recovery. I have found hope, and now I want to give it to others.
I don't know if Allie's tired of hearing me brag about her, but I can't stop myself.
Now I can keep going.
I can keep going. So I just want to tell you that when Allie came to our workshop, she was super shy and reserved, but she kept showing up, and each week she would write a little bit more and a little bit more. And we had no idea what was coming until the last workshop when we brought in her piece fully edited. And I remember Sari handed it to you, and she read it for the first time. And it's all their words. We don't add words or change words, but sometimes we just help restructure the story a little bit. And she read it and said, "This is how I've always wanted to be able to tell my story. This is it." And the next day we did the show, and after the show was over, I swear it was like seeing you go from black and white to Technicolor. It was like the light just came on. And we had a show scheduled the next day at P-Tech High School in thought that the teenagers there would appreciate her story, so I asked her if she would be interested in reading again. Teens are not always the easiest audience, so I gave her fair warning, and she said, absolutely, I want to read my story again. So she came with us there. She then went to Buffalo with us and read at an AmeriCorps conference for 250 people. She started her own blog about mental health. She got published on MTV.com. Was it last year that you got the award from the YWCA? For the Young People Award from the YWCA last year. And she is now serving on their board of directors. I really believe that you're reaping the rewards that you get from sharing your story and giving your recovery away to others. And it just helps your life keep getting better and better. I'm also so moved by the part of the story where she's wise enough to acknowledge that the breakup is a good thing for her in that moment and that she can finally start paying attention to self-care. I think that's amazing. So I really applaud you. The next reader that we have coming up is Gabe. He is a student that we're working with at the Kingston High School in partnership with A Call to Men, and we're doing a full-length documentary with Stockade Works. A Call to Men is an organization that believes if we work on helping to develop healthy manhood and challenging the cultural expectations of masculinity, we will help boys and men, and we will inherently decrease violence against women and girls. So we are working with the boys to be able to be healthy men who can express themselves, who can talk about their experiences authentically. And I'll share a little bit after his story's over so that I don't ruin it. But Gabe has been one of the pioneers of the program, I'll just say that. So, Gabe.
I've been told that I'm not a typical teenager. I don't have an issue letting people know I'm interested in things that may be out of the ordinary or not socially acceptable. I'm currently studying cosmetology at BOCES because it's something I've always been interested in. I can admit in front of a room full of fellow football players that I like romantic comedies over action movies because I can relate to them more. No one may agree with me in a crowd, but they could come up to me one-on-one and tell me they do. I don't get made fun of for being this way. I think it's because I've always been able to be myself and show my real emotions. However, last year something happened, and maybe for the first time I found it to be really challenging to show my emotions. I was in my media tech class. Someone asked me, hey, did you play football with some kid from Monteore named Damien? Yeah, I say. Well, this kid goes on to tell me apparently he died in a car crash yesterday. It catches me off guard. I'm in shock. I don't know what to think or how to respond. I spend a lot of time thinking about it, but I'm quiet for the most part. Damien, or Koufax as we like to call him, was a great teammate. He was someone you knew would play his heart out for his team every time he hit the field. I used to sit with him on the bus for away games and have conversations with him. He always had a foot-long sub and 2 bags of beef jerky. Some people consider him to be kind of redneck, so at first I was a little hesitant to make conversation, but I'm glad I didn't let that stop me. He ended up being the nicest kid. In addition, as I spent the majority of every bus ride trying to get some beef jerky from him, Koufax and I talked about football. That year, we were at the point where we had no wins. Most people had stopped caring, but not me and Damien. We'd always talk about how much it bothered us, and how we still felt it after every loss. He was really easy to talk to. Now he was gone. I'm not sure how I was supposed to process this. Fourth period arrives, which is when I have lunch. I see a lot of my teammates who are hurting. We all gather outside. So many of them are crying. I've never seen so many guys crying at once. Seeing how much it's hurting them only makes me sadder. The rest of the day I can't focus. Koufax is the only thing I'm thinking about. My mom and another teammate come with me to the funeral. It's hard going, knowing that he's truly gone and I'll never play another game with him. Me and another teammate speak at his funeral. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done. Seeing so many hurt faces looking up at me. Again, I realize if this is hard for me, I can't imagine what it's like for his family. After the funeral, we have a barbecue with all his friends and family and spend time together and cheer everyone up. Part of the reason I didn't show emotion at first is because I wasn't super close to him and I kept telling myself that it must be a lot harder for people who were. I've learned a lot since then. I now know that just because I wasn't the closest to him, it doesn't mean it shouldn't hurt. It hurts us all in different ways. I've learned to never take anything for granted because everything can be gone quicker than you think. I used to hate running laps when we got in trouble before this, but not once did I ever think I'd be running those laps with one last teammate. I don't take these things for granted anymore. Now I'm even more committed to speaking my mind, watching what I like, and studying the things that really interest me, because I know I only have one life to do so. The season after Damien passed away, I wanted to honor him. On my cleats, I write Damien Koufax, September 26, 1999 to May 18, 2016. I decide every time I hit the field, I'm not going to hold anything back. I'm going to play every game like it's my last, because that's how Damien played, and now I'm playing for the both of us.
So I'll just let you know, when we launched this program, Tony Porter, who's the president of A Call to Men, came up and presented his presentation to the entire football team, both junior varsity and varsity. If you haven't seen the TED Talk that he's done, I highly recommend it. GQ has said that it's one of the top 10 TED Talks that all men should see. He did this presentation for all of the boys, and then TMI Project got up and said to them, how many of you would like to tell your story? If you look around right now, none of you are raising your hands, and that's exactly what I was looking at then as well. None of them volunteered. And we had this full-length documentary to make, so we were wondering, well, this is really a short movie. We're not doing anything. But after it was over, Gabe and one other player met with the coach and agreed to do the program. And we really felt that there's so much power in peer influence that if we could get 2 players to write and tell their stories to the rest of the teammates, that we would be able to make a difference. So Gabe came to every single session that we had. He and another student named Zach read their stories in the weight room of the Kingston High School. I think it's one of the strangest places that we've done in TNI Project. And after it was over, the other players were so moved that 9 other boys signed up. We now have a full workshop for football players. And I really think it shows the ripple effect and the contagious impact that truth-telling can have. I think we all saw that in the recent #MeToo that went flooding through the world. That when one person is willing to tell their story, it will impact the rest of us little by little. So I thank you for helping us get that program off the ground. The next speaker that we have is Markel. I love his story. It is about relationships with grandparents, with siblings, but also just seeing how much can be behind something simple, like a pair of sneakers. So, Markel.
I'm 6 years old. My eyes open just as fast and in rhythm with my heartbeat, which matches my excitement. Today, my grandma gets to spend some of her currency on me and my brother. And what store can be Payless, where you can get shoes and sneakers for approximately 1,000 pennies. My older 8-year-old brother doesn't share my enthusiasm. He would rather have new Jordans or Timberland boots. Although I don't see why. Our grandparents aren't rich. In fact, they're just getting by. My earliest memories shortly after infancy were with my grandparents. I didn't fully know or understand why. I didn't know that my mother and father didn't want me just yet. They would come into my life a few years later. What caused my parents to give 2 little boys up was their battle and struggle and all the problems that accompanied that. I thank God for my grandparents and believe they built a strong foundation of morals and values for me and my brother, like turning the other cheek And sticks and stones can break your bones, but words will never hurt you, to name a few. I eat my breakfast asking between mouthfuls exactly when are we leaving for Payless. I can't and don't want to share the feeling. I'm too happy. My grandma and grandfather aren't bad. They're just the opposite. They're very old-fashioned and not from the Ulster County area, but God bless them. I love them just the same. My grandfather uses the word mannish and eats head cheese and makes me and my brother wear dress shirts and suspenders to school. My brother takes his off, I keep mine on. Right now, I already know the sneakers I want. The ones where every time you take a step, the bottom of the sneaker lights up. My brother thinks I'm a fool, but what he doesn't know is he may have friends, but I have friends too, and I don't think they will care. Maybe what he really needs to take into consideration is that if his so-called friends would make fun of his attire, then maybe they aren't really his friends, and he would of course argue this. I finish my breakfast and get dressed, pull on my dress pants and shirt and fasten my suspenders. I am ready. We climb into Lincoln and off we go. I try to play a game of I Spy with my little brown eye, but my brother just tells me to keep a lid on it. I complied because even my grandparents are getting tired of my ranting. We get to the store and I go straight to where my every step light-up sneakers await. I even try them on already knowing my size. I know they will fit. My grandma ends up paying extra, but it's still not bad. I still feel like we made out. And when I say we, I mean my grandparents and I, brother excluded. He sulks and I don't want to tell him his sneakers are nice also. It may be a compliment on deaf ears because he really doesn't want them in the first place. As soon as I walk through the door, I take a seat and tear into the box. I put the sneakers on. I had an idea about what this moment would be like, but it's even better than I expected. I can't wait until it turns dark. It's going to be like I have a flashlight in my sneakers. I'm going to be the coolest kid in my class. If not, then at least different and noticeable. Even if I am the butt of all jokes the way that I'm feeling, I will laugh along and tell a few myself. All in all, Grandma and Grandpa can't afford high-ticket items, but I'm excited to keep the sneakers. I'm a kid and kids shouldn't be too choosy. In the future, if I can't get exactly what I want, I'll accept less. Even if they aren't the every step light-up sneakers of my dreams, I will make the decision that whatever my grandparents provide for me is still the best.
Through the Mental Health Association, as did our next reader, Wendy. And what I would just like to share about Wendy's story is that, you know, we all have a story that we hear that is our story, and we hear it in somebody else. And Wendy was that person for me. I like a little teeny talking stories. But she inspired me to be a braver writer. She just went right to the heart of her experience. And I experienced a lot of the same things too. It's not an easy story, and so I just wanted to say that one of the things that I've learned in terms of how to listen is to listen, and this is actually going to be the title of a piece that we're doing with mental health, is vicarious resilience. That we have so much trauma that we've been through, but we also have so much resilience to share. And so I just want you to keep that in mind as you're listening, that the resilience is so strong in this piece. So with that, I welcome Wendy.
Hello. Am I close enough? Am I too far? Am I small? I'm small. Okay. Is that better? Yeah. Okay. One day in 6th grade, I go to the bathroom and come back to the whole class laughing. A boy named Robert has put a clean tampon on my seat. Look, guys, he shouts, she's on her period. Gross. Our teacher, confused about what to do, falls silent. I begin to cry. No, I haven't even gotten my period yet. I shout, trying to be heard over all the laughter, but they're all having too much fun to stop and listen. This is a tough year for me in school to begin with. I have no friends in my class, but I try to make the best of it. I do all my work, I listen, I'm never disruptive, but Robert makes everything worse. For the next year, he does awful things to me. He goes through my notebooks, finds little love notes I wrote about my crush and gives them to him. The whole class laughs and watches as my crush viciously turns me down. It's 6th grade. Robert steals my homework and rips it up, so I'll get in trouble for not having done it. He breaks my expensive bassoon-reeds, which I can barely afford as it is, being from a low-class family. It all comes to a head one day at recess. I'm standing by the trees reading a book when he comes up behind me, shoves me down, and runs away laughing. What he doesn't know is that when he pushed me, a rock hit my breastplate and I stopped breathing. I can't speak, I can't call out for help, but in this moment of perceived death, I have the thought, not knowing yet how much of the same will come after it. I want to die. Back then, I don't even know what wanting to die is called. Suicidal isn't a word in my lexicon. All I know is that every day when I get off the bus, this boy's laughter ringing in my ears. I stand on the driveway and stare at my roof thinking, all right, now if I can climb up there and crane my neck just so, it will snap and I won't have to be me anymore. I stare off into space in class and fantasize about suicide plans. I start to believe all the horrible things Robert says about me. I want to escape everything. This school, this boy, my classes, my lack of friends, my entire life, everything around me. He chips away at my resolve to keep living. I finally tell my mother about all of this and she's enraged. We go to the guidance counselors and all they say is, Robert's parents are going through a divorce. He'll grow out of it. He's young. He's a boy. No actions are taken to reprimand him. I just have to keep living like this, knowing that even the adults, the people who should be able to protect me, can't stop it, won't stop it. After that year, I never really see Robert again. I'm never in his classes, but that doesn't mean the bullying stops. The other kids witnessed Robert's actions and see it as a ticket to ride, permission to mock me relentlessly, year after year. They call me a faggot and a dyke, because a rumor goes around that I'm gay, pushing me further into the closet. Girls gain my trust by pretending to be my friend only so they can tell everyone my secrets. All the pain I've been put through has me so starved for friendship and kindness that I can't see past these people's facades. Every time someone is even relatively nice to me, I grab onto them like a life preserver, only to either push them away by becoming too clingy or to have them leave me because all they wanted to do was hurt me in the first place. I'm not the only one to be bullied, though. I watch other people go through it as well, and when they do, I don't have the courage to stand up for them, the way none of the other kids ever stood up for me. One girl, Sarah, is tortured the same way I am, but she's more vocal in trying to get the kids to stop. Everyone knows she has a sore spot about her European-sounding last name, so they intentionally mispronounce it just to make her start yelling and crying. I never join in, but I never really help her either. She's so sad all the time, and I feel a kinship with her, yet I never go about talking to her or trying to be her friend. Everyone calls her annoying and ugly and a bookworm, the same names I get all the time.
I fear that if I'm associated with her, the mocking will become even more relentless for the both of us. After high school, for a while, I'm not okay. All the suffering I'd gone through catches up with me, and the December after graduation, I try to kill myself. I'm admitted into the psych ward, and that week is one of the hardest I've ever had to go through. But after I'm released, it doesn't end there. I wind up attempting suicide 3 more times over the following 5 years, having a plethora of hospitalizations. In those years, I'm an anxious wreck all the time. I can't hold down a job, being so depressed on some days that I can't even get out of bed. School isn't an option, considering the work and looming thought of finals is what pushed me over the edge the first time I tried to take my life. I ruined my only healthy romantic relationship by self-sabotaging and pushing her away, assuming no one could ever love me. I self-harm. I hate my personality and the way I look. I feel trapped in a life no one should ever have to live. One of the factors in my self-hatred is my role in the vicious, endless cycle of causing pain, my need for revenge. I tried to take revenge and get back at the people who have tried to make my life worse, but the thing is, I regret it every day. Hurting someone who hurt you or taking your anger out on someone else just keeps the cycle going. Eventually, I broke the cycle. Now, when someone mocks me, I laugh with them. When someone tries to hurt me, I unceremoniously cut them out of my life. I won't lie to you and say that pain and bullying ends after graduation, after you cut that one toxic person out of your life. But each blow will start to lessen when you take control and decide that they're wrong. Pain should never be shared or transferable. Loving yourself, even in small chunks, even in bits and pieces at first, is the greatest revenge you can ask for. Breaking the cycle helped me to lose the grief and find forgiveness for myself and for others. I'm not the same person I was in 6th grade, daydreaming off of jumping off of roofs. And I'm not the same person I was in high school, hiding behind apathy in a sketchbook. And no one that hurt me is the same person either. Best of all, I've come to realize that those people did not ruin me. They tried very hard. But 5 hospitalizations later, many burned bridges, and a lot of therapy, I am still here. I clawed my way out. Robert probably doesn't remember what he did to me. He probably doesn't even remember my name. But the thing is, I don't need him to make peace with me, to make peace with my past. There is a strength in me that blossomed when I decided to not let trauma puppet me. Slowly, over this past year, I've become more stable. I've had very few suicidal thoughts, and I haven't self-harmed once. I've come out of the closet, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. I've lost the weight I always hated myself for. I've become a person I don't avoid looking at in the mirror. I've become stronger, and I don't let things that go wrong in my life define my mental health. Things are looking up for me. Things are looking up for Sarah, too. I ran into her recently, and I was so happy to see that she's doing incredibly well. She has a great job that she loves. She looked good. She looked happy. It's inspiring to see that she could shed the pain of her past. She is getting better. I am getting better. Anyone can get better. And that is the most inspiring part of all.
Thank you, Wendy. It is the most inspiring part of all, and I'm always so touched by hearing your story. I was just thinking about when you read the last time at Suicide Awareness Night in Kingston, and I saw teens there who were really struggling and parents who looked really nervous, and Wendy shared her story. and they came up to her afterwards like she was a celebrity and said, "Can I please hug you?" And it was so amazing to watch the inspiration get transferred from Wendy to younger people who could relate, that they know that you really went through that and you got better and that they can too. It really sparked hope in them, and I'm really grateful you're still willing to share that story. I would love to bring all the readers up. Come on up, guys. Let's give them a round of applause. There's so much to take in that it's good for you guys to be able to let some of it out. And whether it's a comment or a question, we welcome anything that you'd like to say. And what we do to keep the conversation open is that we allow you to ask anything that you want, and our participants are allowed to say, "I'm not comfortable answering that." And then you don't have to worry about whether or not it's too much. So is there anybody who would like to say or ask anything? Yeah.
I was wondering if you to start the process of even writing your story and like reflecting on it and what you wanted to say. Like, what did you find the most challenging part of that process, the beginning part of it?
Is there anybody who feels drawn to that one? Yeah? Why don't I give you guys this one to pass down? So she's asking about the beginning of the process, what the biggest challenge was.
I think getting comfortable to like start writing was a big part of it, because I even know with workshops sometimes I'll still come in and be like, I really don't know what I want to write, I have no idea, but you just really have to kind of just sit there and like sometimes just think for a minute, like what are some major moments that's happened in your life or something you feel like you need to talk about, because it might not be at the top of your head at first, but it's in there somewhere.
What's great about it is you don't necessarily need to know what you want to say. You get prompts, and they come in a lot of different shapes and colors, and you just pick one and start writing in an automatic way. And I found there was a kind of magic to it. The story that needs to come out just comes out. So even if you aren't sure, you have a story, and it's gonna come out some way.
We have a process that we take people through, and so the first thing that we do is set up a space that feels safe. We often have people who've gone through the process before come in and read for the new group, so somebody can model what a story is like, and also be the first person who has to be vulnerable, so that no one in the new group has to be the first one to read their story. And then we let the new group ask any question of the participant that they want, like we're doing right here. And then we do weeks of free writing with prompts, tell people to write as fast as they can without letting their pen stop moving so that they don't have time to think. They don't let the editor in the same room as the writer. And then just say very frequently to trust the process, because stories come out in the strangest ways. And we don't know when it'll happen either, but we've got lots of tools to get there. Yeah? Yeah?
What are the different prompts? Like, I've heard it said a couple of times. Like, what does that mean?
Do all of you remember one prompt? Do you want to just say a prompt and pass the mic?
There was one that said, "I hate to brag, but I'm really good at," or something like that. And I was writing something about gymnastics, and then I ended up talking about mental health, like 6 weeks later, I was telling this story, but it started out something as simple as that.
Yeah, often in the beginning we'll use, "I hate to brag, but I'm really good at," or something that you might think about me.
He said, "I love to brag."
Oh, so you have no problem. And another one we use in the beginning is, "Something you might really think that's boring about me is," and then people who are afraid, all my stories are going to be boring, you just get that out of the way right away. Anybody else?
I know like my story, the prompt was a time you didn't feel comfortable like showing your emotions. And immediately the first thing I thought of was Damien.
Yeah. And you know, the story that you shared ended up helping all of the players didn't have a chance to grieve together. And that really provided an opportunity for all of the boys to express their feelings about that loss. They all were impacted by it.
I remember, not exactly what was the prompt, but I remember that I had wrote about an inspiration that Annie had given me through my childhood, and how it related to a song that I had listened to by an artist called Jay-Z, and it gave me a new respect for rap. I really don't listen to rap, I listen to poetry, but the prompt that my story was based on was based on well, I wrote it about my childhood, and you guys heard the story.
Yeah, and I remember the prompt about the song. It was the song where Jay-Z uses part of the song from the Annie soundtrack.
Yes.
And that was how we found out that Markel was adopted by his grandparents. And so it led to the next thing that he wrote about. So, like I said, we never know what's going to help us get there. But I remember that theory that you did. I love that.
When I came into TMI, I came in, I like had a story that I was like, I'm gonna write this down. I gotta write it down. And I didn't end up talking about it even a little bit in what you guys heard. Like, it didn't even get mentioned. And so, like, you guys have, like, stories that you don't even realize that you need to write about. So, the prompts and, like, sometimes it just happens.
Yeah. It's really interesting to go through this process so many times with so many different people and see that if people do have a story that needs to get out, it's going to come out regardless of how we prompt them. And I remember one story in particular. There was a woman who had gone through a really tragic experience at 14. She was raped by her brother and got pregnant. And we prompted her about food, we prompted her about music, we prompted her with the lightest things we could think of, because every time she got done, she would say, I don't want to tell this story, but it came out again. And we said, you do not have to tell this story. We never pressure people to tell stories they're not ready to tell. But she finally gave in and said, it just wants to come out. It's just ready to come out. I can't write about anything else. And she ended up performing it at the end. It was a small retreat that we did. And I didn't think she was going to perform. She did. She ended up touring with us and doing shows at multiple locations when we performed a show about unplanned pregnancy and the many ways people handle them, called What to Expect When You're Not Expecting. And just transformed her experience around the experience by being able to talk to people in the audience after who had gone through the same thing or a similar thing and had never had their story mirrored back for them because it was such a hard one. So that was a really inspiring piece for me to witness, but also just to learn that the prompts in a way are irrelevant, like the story that you need to tell is going to come out, but they help you get there. Yeah?
How long did it take you guys to see the light?
Still working on it, honey. But it's there.
Will you repeat the question?
How long does it take you to see the light in life? That was what you said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's there. You see it sometimes. It comes and it flickers. And then it goes away again. But it's always there.
Anybody else have?
I just think it's like you just gotta try your hardest, you know. In your eyes, you gotta give yourself an E for effort. You just gotta be in that tunnel, and once you see the light at the end, you gotta keep going and never stop.
I think gradually you start to see the light at TMI was like a really eye-opening experience for me and opened a lot of doors. But even though I'm so positive now, not every day is easy. Recovery isn't like going up all the time. Sometimes I have days where it's really hard. But I think gradually recovery and a lot of our stories are about just gradually getting there. And sometimes it does happen all at once, like when I did TMI, but it's not easy every day. So there's light, but sometimes it's a little darker some days.
And I think, I remember from when, how old are you? You're 11? I remember when I was 11, I don't think I could ever see the light. Like, I didn't even know it existed. And as I've gotten older, I think that I believe that it'll keep being there, even if I can't feel it or see it in the moment. But I wasn't able to do that when I was little. And I think that having people who are a little bit older than us remind us that it's there, even when we can't see it or feel it, is really important to hold on to. And you're Gabe's sister, right? I'm glad to hear that. You got somebody. That's going to be his job. Anybody else? Yeah.
I guess mine's more a statement to say what you guys did was really powerful. And I mean, Gabe's story, we've heard the kind of experience that we lived with him. And at that funeral, you know, it was who wants to talk, and nobody went up, but you could see that everybody wanted to. It was just, and once he and his friend went up, all of a sudden this flow of traffic came, which is what you're saying and what you're showing there, you know, that people don't understand. And this little one probably doesn't see anything but the light, but it's so important in her having empathy for the other kids that she's around and never being around her. So she spends a lot of time rolling her eyes. Why do you always have to try and make everything into a learning? There's a lot of huffing that goes on. But my mom had mental illness and she killed herself when Gabe was 6, Alexa was 0, and she committed suicide. And he has a brother who suffers with mental illness, and we understand and we live it. So as much as she rolls my eyes to, her eyes to me, what you guys are doing is so important, and having younger kids see this, particularly the ones who see nothing but the light, or, Gabe who might run with the football crowd, to really have a better understanding. The fact that everybody does have a story, and the way that we all treat each other on a daily basis really impacts the story. So I want to thank you guys for sharing.
Hi. First of all, thank you all for telling your stories. They were inspiring, moving, impactful. The list goes on. But I wanted to ask each of you, it seems like a lot of what you had to say started with bullying, started in your middle school years, your teen years. And one of the things that all of you have said, and I know about TMI, is that they help create a safe space for you to tell your story. If you could tell the adults, the educators in our community, in our world, what would you say to them to help us make a safe space for students now? It seems to be a critical piece of being comfortable with your story and being able to tell your story and share your story and to create a healing environment for you as the storyteller and for us as the listeners.
Is there something specific about the space we created that made it possible for you to share? Yeah.
I know something that did not help me when I was a kid.
Okay, that's good.
Which was that adults telling you what you're feeling, or that they know exactly what you're feeling, because when you're an adult, it's harder to
you were a kid, and so you feel like you get it. You want them to know you get it. But when you're experiencing it, it's everything is in bleeding technicolor. And you're not bleeding anymore. As an adult, you're not in school. And that's that pain that you experience, or that joy, or that euphoria and terror. And it's when you tell them you know how you feel, you know how they feel, or you know what they're feeling, specifically you know what they're feeling. It changes what they see in you as a safe person. So that's mine. Sorry.
No, I think, you know, in terms of what we do in relation to that comment, we really are there just to listen, not to fix anyone or tell them what their experience should be, but just to shape the stories that you guys have, and whatever that is. So I think that there's a connection there in terms of, you know, I think we all, especially when we're dealing with younger people who are struggling, just want to fix it and make it better. But sometimes there's no fix. Sometimes it's just being there to listen.
You have great intentions, and I want that to be like known. And also with TMI, like what Eva said, which was that they never put words in your story, and that just take that as that metaphor. Don't put words into someone's story. They're going to tell you their story when they're ready to tell you their story.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments about that?
I was just gonna say that, like, I still remember the first session. It was me, one other kid, Zach, me and Zach are completely different. Like, I don't feel like me and him have a lot in common, but it was okay because I feel like I learned that first session that everyone had a story. Another person that was there was our coach, Coach Collins, and I just remember like hearing like even Coach Collins tell his story. Like, I never thought I'd hear someone who'd been coaching me through football for years tell me like the story about when he played and something he went through. So I don't know, I feel like after that kind of opened my eyes and I realized that no matter who you are or how old you are or anything, like, you have stories like that you need to tell.
Absolutely. And that's something that we do often also is model. We don't have, whenever we're teaching a workshop, we take it as well, and so we share our writing with the participants. And if we're asking them to be vulnerable and open up, we do the same thing and share pieces of ourselves with the participants. Because we all come to the table with a set of experiences and stories, and I think it just levels the playing field. And models too, like the fact that your coach has been willing to do that every single time really models how committed he is and gives an example of a grown man doing what we're asking of them, which is really powerful. Yeah.
I'm kind of making an assumption here that I wanted to check in with all of you. Have you all started writing on your own, keeping journals, doing your, I mean, rather than, I'm not sure how organized TMI is, how often you meet, or whatever, but I was just wondering if you all finding on your own that writing is something you have.
Do you guys keep writing on your own?
I never wrote that much before I went into that, like, ever a personal story. Before the first meeting, I was just like writing for school and that's it.
Not even for that.
And some of the school stuff.
It's one of the downsides of having parents.
I will say that I got something from all of your stories. Like, I can see myself in that, in all situations. I've seen Gabriel play maybe, I don't know, so let's just say 100 football games. I don't think I've ever been more proud of you. Like, that was great.
How often do we meet? Like, I know with us we meet once a week, but
Yeah, the workshops vary, so we might have a weekend intensive or a one-day workshop. workshop, or in this case, it's been, because it's for the documentary project, and we intended it for it to be a 1-year program, but it turned into a 2-year program. It's been ongoing, but it varies. I see a hand in the back.
Where did you get the name TMI from?
Oh, it's funny, so I mentioned that we started from doing the vagina monologues, and I did it the first year in 2008. They asked me to do it again in 2009 because we raised so much money. We did that one here. In 2010, they asked me to do it again, and I told them that I was vaginaed out and asked if we could tell our own stories instead. And so the group of us got together and we told our own stories, and we sat in my living room on the living room floor. And we didn't have a theme anymore because we were all writing about all sorts of different things. And so what we discovered was that the through line now was that we were all telling the part of the story that we usually leave out. And we actually, and so we were trying to brainstorm, like, what should we be called? And somebody said, you know, we're all telling stories about how we're trying to act normal. And it almost got called Act Normal, which I'm really thankful that we didn't Act Normal. And then actually Joan Morgan, who's a writer, said, what about TMI? We're all telling the too much information parts of our stories, and it stuck. So I wanted to thank all of you for being such a wonderful audience. Thank you so much for coming out and hearing our stories. And if there are any teens here who are interested in doing work with us, the piece that Elise mentioned, I don't know if you've heard of the Netflix series called 13 Reasons Why. We would like to do a piece called 13 Reasons Why Not. And we'd like to do that with 13 teens. So do we have a sign-up sheet for them? In the back? Okay, so we're going to bring the sign-up sheet up front. If you are interested in doing that, please leave your name. We don't have the details settled yet. We're not sure when it's going to happen, but we would like to be able to get in touch with you if you're interested. And also, we would like to take those who are interested in going through a writing exercise to come down to the front, and we'll bring you through that. If you don't feel like going through the exercise, you don't have to stay, but those of you who would like to, please come down to the front. And one more.
I have a question for you, like you're saying teens. Do you ever start this with younger kids? Because the cruelty level really does start, you know, at like, it's not the same world that we grew up in where maybe you stand a chance in middle school.
Yeah.
It's like the 4th, 5th, 6th, and by the time they're in 8th grade, you know, it's a habit, you know. And like I said, for me personally, I know what I try to influence in my kids, but something like this for younger kids might be harder to keep them focused. But I think if you really instrumental it,
Yeah.
you will be able to do that.
You know, my sister is a literacy advisor at a school in Massachusetts, and so she was doing a personal narrative unit with her teachers and had me come in and train them so that they could use TMI projects in their work. And so we're going to try to work on a curriculum that can partner with what they're using already. But one of the issues that we have with schools is there's so much red tape to get through, and a lot of schools don't want to find out what the mess is. They don't want too much information going on in their schools. And so the places we've had success is when there's someone internally who wholeheartedly believes in what we're doing. At P-Tech, it was Jonah Shanker. He was the principal there, and he was phenomenal. And now Coach Collins is our liaison with Kingston High School, and he is 100% committed. So we have somebody on the inside who can go work and advocate for the work that we're doing. But it ends up being a bit of a challenge in school settings because of that. I saw one more hand, and I think it was a young person. Yes. Regardless of where we work, our work is almost always open-ended. Like, we don't give people themes that they should focus on. We try to help them find the story that they need to tell. And so I think while there might be different topics that adults might touch on because they are old enough to have gone through getting married and divorced or having children or any of the issues that come up later, I think they all come from the same place, like that human part of us that we can really connect to.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I want to tell a story. The person who was in my writing workshop when I did it in 2015, he was almost 90? Almost 90?
Yeah.
And he told his story about being a gay man back in the 50s and the 40s, and it was such an amazing story. And he was in a group, I think I was 22, and I thought it was just the most relatable story. And I'm not gay, but I thought that his story was amazing. And there's someone else that I know who did his story on being in the Vietnam War, and I think you connect on a certain level to every person's story because you can relate in some way. Even though I was not ever in Vietnam, something about how he told his story touched me, and I think that's how TMI works, is that you can relate to someone in some part of their story because you know that feeling at some point in your life.
I think it's usually a mix of humor and poignancy. You know, there's always a mix.
I was by far the youngest person in my writing class. And I did it when I was 22 or 21. And I found through doing it that humanity is inherently relatable. That like, I could relate, like, you find a piece of yourself in everybody. Everybody is, that's humanity. We are all atoms and space dust, and like, we are all part of each other. And so it doesn't matter how old or young, you're gonna find yourself in somebody.
And I'm really grateful that you had us for tonight. This is the first time that we've curated a show intentionally for teens and young people. And so it's a real honor to be partnering with you to bring this work to a younger community of people. Come on up, please.
Surely share that on behalf of the board, the teams, and the entire audience, everybody who's witnessed all of you and heard, and knowing that you've created spaces to have these stories flourish and share. Just deep thanks. It's just really touching. And aside from the stories, the other comments that you shared, such pearls. I am thrilled, and thank you so very, very much. Yeah. So you have a little workshop for those who want to take a little chance.
I think thank you everyone for coming. For those of you who'd like to sign up, the sign-up sheet is right here. If you'd like to write with us, please come down to the front so that we can see who's here. And I would ask that you only stay for the writing part if you want to write. I would rather not have people here just to witness, because if we're in it together, we're in it together. It's one of the pieces about creating a safe space. It doesn't mean that you have to read what you write though. We're not gonna have time to hear everyone. But we'll all just take part in the writing if you're interested. So come on down. Oh, we also have paper and pens down here.